Hello, everybody. Adam Parks here with another episode of Receivables Roundtable. Today, I am here with a man who needs no introduction, Mr. Michael Lamm with Corporate Advisory Solutions. Michael has been a staple of the industry, well, as long as I've been around, and really excited to have him on here today. We're going to talk a little bit about mergers and acquisitions and kind of how the industry is transforming and changing. Michael, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your time.
You as well, Adam. Thanks for having me on the show. It's great.
Absolutely. For anybody out there, and I'm sure there's only a handful that are not familiar with you, could you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and kind of how you got to the seat that you're in today?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting story. Well, at least for some folks, it may be interesting. But years and years ago, you never, in my mind, you never think I'm going to get into the debt collection industry at some point in my future. But I ended up working for a business called Kalkin Ginsberg, and I worked there pretty much right out of college. And while I was there, the area that they specialized in, Adam, was the debt collection industry. Mm-hmm. So when I was about 22-ish, 23 years old, pretty much knew nothing about the world or anything else. That was my starting point for learning a lot about the debt collection industry from a mergers and acquisitions perspective.
Well, I think we've both had the opportunity to learn from some very experienced people, and I think in about the same time frame as well. Now that you have Corporate Advisory Solutions, can you tell everybody a little bit about what you guys do over there?
Yeah, so we're a mergers and acquisitions firm. That's I would say about 65 to 70% of our revenues come from M&A. The rest of our business is valuation, strategic consulting, market research, and it's all really in and around three industries. Debt collection, and whether it's a debt buyer, a law firm, or an agency, or a hybrid, we touch all those different areas. We also do a lot of work in healthcare revenue cycle management. That's a big area of focus for us, as well as the call center or contact center industry, which is how it's known today.
Okay, so you guys are doing kind of receivables management. You're working in that revenue cycle, or like the revenue cycle management under the healthcare umbrella, and then kind of looking at some of these other areas as well. Very interesting. That call center environment, I'm sure, is a continually growing marketplace right now. And there's probably a whole lot of hybrids between that kind of like BPO call center space and what's happening in receivables management. Because I know I've seen quite a few groups that I've worked with through the years that have started to kind of make that transition or started providing services down both avenues.
Yeah. And Adam, we also, the other areas that we touch, we do a lot of work in debt settlement, the credit repair industry, credit counseling. So we're on that side of the house too. And that's been a growing area of interest from both strategic buyers as well as investors that are looking at the space.
Well, it's very interesting and probably gives you some really interesting perspective into how the industry is continuing to evolve, which is why I wanted to kind of have this conversation, with the application of Reg F, COVID, all these other things that have happened that are kind of unique, right? Like, I feel like the cycles that we've all become used to have kind of been broken, and the predictability of things has become a little bit more difficult. So, what are you seeing in the M&A space? Like, I know that you guys have gotten a couple deals done recently and that there's a lot of exciting things that are happening. So, tell us about what are you seeing in the marketplace these days?
Yeah, Adam. So the market is transforming pretty quickly with technology, and Reg F is driving a lot of that right now. So we're starting to see a lot more technology-oriented transactions where you're seeing companies that are in the payments area come together with companies in the debt collection industry. You're seeing behavioral scoring, analytics companies looking at ways to play in the space. So you're starting to see all these new business models sprout up, all due to the changes that Reg F has created. And I feel like that is going to be a major driver for M&A activity over the next 12 to 18 months, because there's going to be winners and losers like there always is in any industry. But in this particular case, I think you're going to see a lot of companies really thinking about merging or acquiring than we've seen before because of the costs to comply and technology costs as well. Those costs aren't going down. They continue to go up.
So by coming together, they're able to establish kind of an economies of scope, right? Like they're able to get more done on that same technology dollar because they don't need to have multiple deployments, and they're able to kind of manage that process. That's interesting. Have you seen have you seen organizations of different channels starting to come together, meaning like debt buyers making acquisitions of agencies, or, how has it been
Yeah,
like
I mean,
agency to agency, or are they starting to cross paths?
yeah, I mean, you're seeing it across the board. We're seeing debt buyers coming together, debt buyers are also bringing together on the technology side so they could expand it into certain states, like what Jormandy and security credit were involved in recently and that we were involved in. So we're seeing all these different types of changes. Even when I go to the law firm market, which has been a challenging area to do M&A work in, that market is shifting and consolidating and coming together, where legal networks, law firms are merging, joining forces with others as well, Adam. So it's not just the agency side, it's also the debt buyer and law firm side of the equation too.
Very interesting. Now, as you know, and one of the things kind of as you were talking about it, and as I think about kind of that like Jormandy and security credit services, obviously I've known Susan Becker as long as I've been in the space. And everybody knows security credit services. And if I'm not mistaken, like Susan, like used this as an opportunity to retire. Are you seeing more
Yep.
people kind of using that mergers and acquisition strategy as an exit strategy as they're preparing for retirement?
There's no doubt. I mean, this is it's a hard business, but when you start getting up in age and you start thinking about, well, what am I going to do? Do I have kids in the business? Don't I have kids in the business? It usually means that there's going to be a transaction with a third party. And then when you start to think through who would be the right type of buyer, this industry is very small and incestuous, Adam. So you've got most of the people know everybody. And so as a result of that, it's very important for the seller to really know who they're transacting with on the other side to make sure there's a comfort zone. Because if there's no comfort zone, cultural fits, or a meeting of the minds, there's usually no transaction to be done. That's probably paramount when we're seeing situations occur in the space when you're dealing with a shareholder that's looking to retire and exit.
Makes a lot of sense. I would think that that would be a very appropriate exit strategy. There's not a lot of, I'm sure, outside organizations or people that are coming in to make those buys, although it sounds like we've seen, at least from the press releases I'm reading, more venture capital money starting to come into the space and kind of looking at the opportunities. I mean, that may be a function of the cost of capital right now being considerably cheaper than it has been in the past.
Yeah, I mean, Adam, 15, 20 years ago, these venture capitalists, private equity firms, family offices would kind of say, I don't want to do anything in the debt collection industry. I don't want to be on the front cover of the Wall Street Journal. But being that the market has changed and you have more technology and it's less about calling and collecting, it's more about the data that's supporting the collection activity, you're seeing a lot more investors look at this industry as a growth segment, not just domestically, but U.S., internationally, Europe, Asia, et cetera. So you've got a whole new crop of entrants that are well capitalized that want to come into the marketplace and do different things too.
Very, very interesting. I'm curious to learn more about kind of how venture capital is starting to deploy their money into this space, because cost of capital, and I'm sure that they're looking at it from a number of different perspectives, the acquisitions or being able to provide lending and funding. As you see these VC firms coming in, are you seeing more, kind of debt structured plays, equity plays, hybrids? How does that start to look?
Yeah, so the VC guys are usually coming in and they're doing a equity deal under a control scenario, and they're buying into a thesis around technology typically that is going to be deployed in a certain area of the marketplace. Like right now, areas around healthcare technology is very hot right now because of all the changes that have happened with COVID and telehealth. You're seeing a lot of companies that are going in and saying, how can we automate that process when the patient goes in, they don't have any idea how much they're going to owe after their surgery is completed, and they're wondering what they're going to do next. There are companies that have been stepping in to try to solve that problem and help either finance them, the patient, and or figure out how much they're going to owe in advance of the surgery so they can figure out a payment arrangement.
Very interesting. I feel like the other thing that I've seen in the marketplace is technology companies buying other technology companies. And I think that part of that is, I know when I sold ComplyArm, part of that deal was they were looking for customer acquisition in some pieces of the technology itself. Do you think that we're going to see more consolidation amongst the technology organizations for both market expansion or market share expansion and kind of that application of the technology itself?
Absolutely, Adam. I think you're going to see many more mergers and strategic acquisitions by some of the larger and mid-size technology players in the space. And the reason is because the industry, in order to grow and add size and scale, they've got to go that direction. Ontario has been kind of prolific in that regard, making a number of strategic acquisitions, or their new name, Finvi, has been very, very active.
Yeah, I understood they bought Catabat, if I'm not mistaken.
They did. We actually had sold Catabat a year prior, so it's been a interesting. There's no doubt about that.
An interesting ride. That's interesting. So, from the perspective of, the majority of our audience, which is the technology companies and those collection agencies, debt buyers, et cetera, what, if you're starting to think about either, selling your organization or raising capital, what are some of the things that a business owner should be looking at as they prepare for that process? How do they make themselves more valuable?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is to really look under the hood at your financials, right? And really study them to understand what is the true profitability of the business. And if you're a debt buyer, it's a little different. It's not the same as if you're an agency or a law firm. But for a normal service business, getting to that multiple or figuring out what your adjusted EBITDA is or normalized EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization, Adam, is a very important starting point to understand how a business, like whatever it is going to be valued in the marketplace before you go out and start spending a lot of time talking to buyer prospects.
And so as you engage a new company, what does that process look like for somebody who's trying to sell their business? So they pick up the phone, they call Michael Lamm, they go, I want to sell. Like, what's that process look like? I'm sure there's like a documentation due diligence, right? Like an entire sale process, but give us some insight into what that process ultimately looks like, if we call and engage you.
Yeah. So great question, Adam. For us, it really starts, number one, we take confidentiality extremely seriously. So the first thing is we get a confidentiality agreement or a non-disclosure agreement in place with the target company. And we start to understand from there what their goals, expectations are, and timing, right? Okay. Because we've got to understand from them what's driving them to pick up the phone and say, I'm ready to sell my company. There's usually a trigger. That could be, I just got another TCPA lawsuit, or I'm dealing with something that I'm just tired of dealing with inside the operational side of the business, or the volume of purchases are down so considerably maybe this is a good time for me to liquidate and get as much as I can for the portfolio. We got to understand what the general view is that they've got, because that usually helps us understand why and if we're going to be successful in helping them accomplish an outcome, which is usually a sale or a merger in their minds.
Okay. And then from the buyer's perspective, somebody looking to acquire organizations, what does that look like? Do they reach out to you in advance and kind of get a feel for hey, I'm looking?
Yeah, Adam, we want people to call us all the time and inbound us and let us know what their acquisition guardrails are. What are they looking to acquire, whether it's a technology part of the business, a services business? What are they looking to acquire? How much capital are they looking to spend and over what period of time? Because then we log that information into our database. And as we have deals that come up, we filter on it just like anybody else would to figure out what is the right opportunities for them. And then obviously we contact them when we have deals that pop up that meet the guardrails.
So if somebody's looking to expand their business, get on the phone with you, establish kind of like what it is that I'm looking for or how it is that I'm looking to expand my business so that when those deals come up, I mean, it sounds a lot like, I hate to use this term, but like it's a brokerage kind of situation, right? Like it's the same thing when I was broker in debt. I was out there courting sellers. I had this list of, buyers that were available. And when new portfolios came to the market, I'd filter them, bring them out to the market and just make the right phone calls instead of putting it out like probably shouldn't be looking for a press release that this company is available for sale because this is much more of a back channel type of transaction.
Yes, Adam. We try, it is very much a brokerage style business. One thing that I would say is that, and this is a little different than an example in the real estate market where a broker can sit on both sides of the table and get a fee from the buyer and a fee from the seller. We're always on one side of the table. We're either representing the buyer or we're representing the seller.
Okay. So you're not it's not a transactional brokerage as defined by Florida real estate. I don't know how it works in the rest of the country, but that's very interesting. So you guys stick to one representation. Now, when you're sticking to one representation, right. I mean, do you find yourself more on that seller side or the buyer side in terms of frequency?
Ebbs and flows. Every year it's different. Sometimes we're working on the buy side more. Sometimes we're working on the sell side more. It really, every year is a little different as to the playing field that exists in the marketplace.
Very interesting topic of discussion, Michael. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today. I think that there's a lot of viewers that are either interested in either acquiring new businesses or merging with other companies or going the opposite direction and trying to sell or even starting to look at their retirement options. And it sounds like you might be the right guy to call.
Yeah, well, look, Adam, I would love to get the phone call if there's a need that ever comes up from your audience. But it's always just good to share what's going on in the industry and the trends and some of the market issues that are out there that we're all facing.
Well, it sounds like this is something we're going to have to do on a more recurring basis and get you on here and talking about kind of where the industry is going, what we're seeing in the marketplace and those kinds of things, because your insight is incredibly valuable. And having your unique perspective and position in the industry, I think provides you with a lot of information that enables you to educate and provide insight to individuals without breaching confidentiality, but to be able to steer and direct things in an appropriate manner for a number of different organizations. So having known Michael for the better part of my career at this point, I would highly suggest that if you are considering buying, selling, that you do reach out, have that conversation with him and at least get a better understanding of what the process looks like, because trying to go out and sell your business on your own is a very difficult prospect. And having the tools and one of the things that you said early on, kind of really stuck with me through the conversation, which is the valuations. It's not just about the mergers and acquisitions. It's about being able to establish value, because even if you are going to try and do something on your own, how do you then establish the value of your organization, right? Every organization is different. Every business is evaluated in different ways. And so I think that's probably a difficult task, and the market research portion of your organization probably weighs heavily into being able to establish those values.
It sure does, Adam. There's not one agency debt buyer law firm that looks exactly like the next one. They're all different and unique in their own way. And we're always trying to figure out what is unique about them that's going to create that selling point or opportunity for the buyer.
Well, fantastic. For those of you that are watching, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. Both Michael and I will be tagged and happy to answer any questions that you have. If you have any additional topics that you'd like to see us discuss, I would love to have Michael back on Receivables Roundtable so that we can kind of continue the conversation and look at some different angles of the business. We both have some very unique perspectives on this business coming from very different backgrounds, but in a way in which we spend a lot of time in a lot of different organizations, giving us kind of a wide swath of experiences across the space. Until next time, though, Michael, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today. I always learn something from our conversations and look forward to the next one.
Me as well, Adam. Thanks again for setting it up.
Awesome. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks.